Wynn, and thank you all for coming today. We've got a dynamic list of speakers on several topics that I hope you will find relevant and possibly a need for your organization. So we're going to get started. You should be able to see my screen in the PowerPoint presentation. First of all, I've introduced myself, but I also want to
You know
show
what,
you.
Jan? I'm
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I'm not seeing your screen anymore. We had it up and then it looked like it went away.
okay, let me see what went on.
I don't think I'm the only one. There we go. All set.
Okay, good. I think, hang on here, let me get back to. There we go. Okay, all right. So what you're going to see now is a list of the organizations that are members of this collaborative, and that's changing all the time, and that's a great thing because we want to make sure that whatever employer and other stakeholders that would like to be part of this absolutely can be. So it's a large partnership, it's dynamic, and that's great because there's a lot of power in partnerships. Now, if you could just please in the chat put your name, the name of your organization, and what your role is or your title is at your organization, that would be really helpful as a exercise for introductions with each other since this is such a large group. As well as some of you I suspect are new. This might be your first meeting, and so that gives us opportunity to kind of officially add you to the meeting cadence in the list. So again, if you, I'd give you a few minutes just to do that. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce Wynn. I do this every time, but again, we have new people on every time. So Wynn is a division of SEMCA, the Southeast Michigan Community Alliance. WIN stands for the Workforce Intelligence Network. WIN has its own board, and the board is made up of 10 greater Southeast Michigan community colleges and 7 regional Michigan Works agencies. And you'll see all of our board members reflected on this slide. WIN it is focused on 3 different pillars: research, engagement, and solutions. And we, the Health Careers Alliance, encompasses all of those. In fact, today we're going to have the the annual data update by our research team from WIN. And so again, we start with research and then we engage employers and facilitate their leadership in these collaboratives and then determine solutions through the other stakeholder resources that are also part of the membership of this organization. We have a really packed agenda. I sent this out to all of you yesterday, so we're going to move right through it so that our speakers have plenty of time, and also so that you can engage with questions and comments if you're so moved to do so at the end. I'm not sure if Valerie Jemerson is on. She sent me a text and saying that her 9 o'clock was running over and she'd be a little late. So I don't see her speaking up. So I'm going to move right on to my updates and then we'll come back to Valerie when she gets here. She told me that she had updates on My Reach and My Coach. Some of you may be involved in those initiatives. The Health Careers Alliance updates, I want to talk a little bit about membership. One of the things that's really common is that different members, those of you, will forward the meeting invite to a colleague, and that's great. However, I would like to capture information about that colleague. So again, please let me know if there are any changes or additions from your organization to add to the membership directory. And also any deletions if someone has left the organization or changed roles. I like to keep the membership directory updated as much as possible because I do share that out because that's part of the engagement part of our work is to connect people. And so sharing out that membership directory and contact information and titles of people, not only of the employers, but of the education providers and the talent resources and others. So again, just please let me know. Also, if you have any recommendations for me of someone I might want to reach out uh, to see if they would like to be part of this group, I'm more than happy to do that. Lastly, if you are new to this group and you really want to have a better understanding of what it is we do and how it might benefit your organization, please let me know, and I'm happy to set up a one-on-one and can go over a little bit of the history of the Health Careers Alliance as well as what we're working on right now. Although you'll get some of that through today's speakers. Also, meeting format. When you do forward meeting invites to people that aren't on the list, sometimes if there's a change in meetings or I want to send out like I did yesterday, the agenda ahead of time, as well as the a flyer that I sent out. It isn't going to get to those people that the meeting invitation was forwarded to. So we're looking at maybe doing a webinar format. I don't know, but we want to make sure that we are including everybody that wants to be included in these meetings. And so we're exploring a webinar. We haven't figured that out yet, but I just wanted to let you know that, again, the key message here is we really want to include everybody. So please don't be shy. Reach out and contact me and give me your information so I can officially add you to the list so that you get all the information. Healthcare Task Force Metropolitan Affairs Coalition. In the spring, I was invited to join the Healthcare Task Force. It was a newly formed group of like a subcommittee of the Metropolitan Affairs Coalition of Southeast Michigan. And I mentioned that in our last meeting that we had. There have been 2 meetings of the Healthcare Task Force. The Healthcare Task Force has really been focused on health equity issues, mental health, behavioral health kinds of things, policy changes, securing resource for healthcare and those kinds of things. They did do a public survey, which I shared out with all the members of the Health Careers Alliance to complete. And the results of that survey that they did indicated that there is a concern about not having the workforce that healthcare needs. And so with that, the task force decided to host a symposium about workforce. And so that's being held at Macomb Community College on November 1st. I sent out the flyer to everybody on the Health Careers Alliance membership list just yesterday with the agenda, and you do need to register. There's a QR code on there. It's really easy to register. So if that's something that you're interested in and have availability that day, I would strongly encourage you to attend. The Health Careers Alliance will be represented on the panel, as well as several of the organizations that are part of the Health Careers Alliance. Another group that reached out, it was this summer, maybe a couple months ago, was the Detroit Regional Chamber. they partner with the University of Michigan ELAC, I'm sorry, and also the Detroit Mayor's Office, Henry Ford Health. There's quite a strong partnership there, but they wanted to come together and invite people who were engaged in other healthcare workforce initiatives. And so I was invited. There were quite a few others there. And again, they were kind of getting a feel for where there were gaps in the existing workforce initiatives. We've only had one initial meeting. We looked at data, we shared what each of our organizations are working on, looked for areas that we could partner on, identified gaps. And so I will keep you more informed as that group rolls out, but I did invite all of that group to the Healthcare Task Force Symposium on November 1st. So hopefully through all these connections will hopefully align our efforts so that we're not duplicating and we're being as efficient as we can. So the next slide is actually the flyer for the symposium, and the QR code is there. So I'm just going to pause here a minute. I actually, before this meeting, I wanted to see if I could register myself for the symposium from this slide, and it did work. So I'm just going to pause here for a minute. If this is something that you would like to go to, there's no cost for it. Go ahead and scan that QR code and get yourself registered. Okay, is Valerie Jemerson here yet? Alicia, do you see her on the
Yes.
list? Oh,
Yes, I'm
great.
here. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm gonna move forward to introduce Valerie. Oops, I need to move backwards. That's right, because Valerie was before me. So Valerie Jemerson is here with us today from Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunities. She works with the Sector Strategies Department or Division of LEO and is the talent liaison for healthcare for the state. So Valerie is the co-organizer of the Health Careers Alliance and actually one of the founders of it. I came on after the fact, so I'm going to hand it off to Valerie for her updates.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to share a slide. I
Okay.
wanted to give, first of all, thank you, Jan, for having me as part of this meeting. Thanks to all of you employers and education partners for making a lot of progress in terms of workforce development. Jan has been, I can't say enough about Jan's commitment and dedication and hard work to make this employer-led collaborative a success. One of the programs that I'd like to share with you, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity received a grant last year. We're getting ready to start our second year of the grant program to provide training for community health workers. Our training partner is the Michigan Community Health Worker Alliance that has been providing training for many years. The program is designed to provide a career pathway for recent high school graduates as well as adults 18 and over in targeted communities. The program, the total training program is 8 weeks to become a certified community health worker and 4 additional weeks to obtain a micro credential in behavioral health care. I'm working with a talent pipeline management employer-led collaborative that's focusing on the needs for the behavioral health care workforce. So one of the careers that was identified by this group, which is primarily community mental health associations and schools that operate clinics for their students, is that there's a need for licensed social workers. So this is an entry-level point for those students who have the interest in becoming a licensed social worker. And I'm working with Dr. Amy Lee. There's a team that's working to develop the social worker career pathway. But that's the long-term goal. Immediately, these students need 40-hour internships working in a healthcare facility. So if you are interested, please reach out to me and I can provide you with more information. We're planning on having a information webinar for employers to learn more about the 40-hour internship and what is being asked of employers in providing these internship opportunities. The other, I do want to indicate to you that the areas for this grant are targeted. The grant was designed to impact medically underserved areas in the state of Michigan. I just want to note that the city of Detroit is not on this list. A total of 3 Department of Health Resources and Services Administration grants were awarded to the state of Michigan. So Wayne State University and Detroit Recovery Project are the 2 grantees that were selected for the city of Detroit. So that's why Detroit is not on this list. In addition, Grand Rapids Community College on the west side also received community health worker training program grant funds. In presenting our application to HRSA, we indicated that we would be serving targeted medically underserved areas. So if you have facilities in these areas and are interested in the community health worker training program, please reach out to me and let me know. And we're planning on having an employer information session next month, and I'll make sure that Jan gets that information and she can forward it on to those of you and forward it to the Total Health Careers Alliance, and those of you who are interested, please sign up for it. One last note, I don't have a slide for it, but we continue to provide funding for the Michigan Rural Enhanced Access to Careers in Healthcare, otherwise known in MyReach. That program was funded 3 years ago, and SIMCA is a partner with that, and GST Michigan Works is one of SIMCA's subgrantees to provide training dollars for facilities located in rural healthcare areas. In order to provide additional financing, the state of Michigan has invested additional dollars in other in the MyReach program in areas outside of the initial 4 regions that we had funding from the USDOL. So that's great news for rural healthcare, and if there's any interest in that, please be sure to reach out to me as well. Thank you. That concludes my updates. Thanks, Jan. Are there any questions or comments?
Okay, are you seeing my screen now again?
Yes, I see, yeah, the
Okay,
my
okay,
comment slide. Yes,
all right.
yeah, I stopped sharing.
Okay, and
We
that
do have
is,
a
oh, go ahead.
we do have a question in the chat. Will the My Coach training be made available in other communities at some point?
That's a great question. So just like the MyReach program, we'll look at the interest and activity for this federally grant funded component and make that decision. In the meantime, if there are participants or individuals that are interested in a area that's outside of the MyCoach areas, certainly reach out to your, a participant can reach out to their Michigan Works Agency to see if there's training dollars available through another source for community health workers. In addition, the Michigan Community Health Workers Alliance has training grant funds through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and they may be able to accommodate and provide training dollars for a participant that is outside of the areas that I shared earlier with you. Great question. Thank you.
And Valerie mentioned that she's working, she's working with a lot of people to bring this to fruition, but one of them she mentioned is Dr. Amy Lee, who's on the call. And the reason for that is to make the program accessible throughout the state through the Michigan Workforce Training and Education Collaborative. So training dollars are one thing, but accessibility for the actual training program is another. So they've got this covered, sort of, so to speak, in a lot of different ways. So, but again, it's a lot of these initiatives take time, and so if there's further need, there's probably going to be other funding that isn't just in the communities that Valerie listed. So, very, very much needed occupation. So,
And one of the
okay.
things, I did have one other note, Jan. We're working with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services toward making community health worker services reimbursable through Medicaid. So we don't have a date for that information yet, but our training partner is working closely with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services on that policy. And we'll have that information available to employers as well, because that's going to be a great added incentive for employers who are currently hiring, currently employing community health workers, and for getting newly trained community health workers employed.
Yeah, that's huge. It really is huge.
Yes, yes.
So the training provider, isn't it a university? Is it Central?
The training provider for the My Coach Community Health Worker Program is the Michigan Community Health Worker Alliance. They are
Oh,
the
that's
recognized trainer and training approver for Michigan.
okay.
They develop the skills and competencies in the training curriculum in collaboration with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And all of the training programs that are offered throughout the state at colleges are approved through MISHWA.
That's right. I knew that because I wrote an Appendix A for a registered apprenticeship program using their outline. But
Yes.
I think when we talked before, Valerie, that the university piece was for that pathway into, um, that future kind of social work position. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what Dr. Lee and a team are working on right now
Okay.
to provide that pathway. And one of the things that Dr. Lee suggested, and we're looking at the credits that are earned under the course The credits that are earned, not credits, the training through the MSHWA program, there are no college credits associated with that program now, but that's being looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Are there any other questions for Valerie? All right, gonna move on then.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so our first set of featured speakers are WIN's research team, which is Dr. DeYoung An, Senior Research Analyst, and Kevin Kranick, Research Analyst. So I am going to um, uh, turn this over to them. And do you want to let me or Alicia know when you want your slides advanced?
Yeah, that would be perfect, Jan. I have several notes in front of me here, so I'll just let you know when we're ready for the next one. And if you can move us through, that would be great.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for entertaining us on the research update today. We're going to be looking at a lot of the data from the Q2 2023 reports that WIN recently published online, so we can show you where to access those. And then we're also going to be taking a look at some career profiles that were developed in 2023 as well. So if Jan, you could advance to the next slide, please. This one is a relatively quick update looking at the healthcare employment in the WIN region during Q2 2023. We can see there were a total of 303,873 total employees in healthcare as measured by the WIN defined healthcare occupation group. So the 1% was a meaningful increase, although compared to other WIN-defined occupation groups, it was not as much of an increase as we saw elsewhere. However, what did make it an important finding for Q2 is that this milestone was the first time that we saw employment eclipse pre-pandemic levels for the first time. So pretty clear to see if you trace back through the employment levels going back to 2019, this is the first time that we've observed a full recovery from the losses that were experienced in the healthcare occupation group. So that was a pretty meaningful first-time milestone there. It also indicates that among all of the jobs lost and the employees who left the workforce in healthcare during that time, that many employers have stabilized from those labor losses, and we're seeing a little bit more normal, which is really saying something in the healthcare occupation group. Next slide, Jan. And if anybody has questions throughout, feel free to pause me. I'm happy to go into the data in further detail or to take any questions that I can look up more answers for after the fact. Getting into the gender trends in healthcare employment, there was an imperfect comparison that I wanted to make, but I still believe that the data is meaningful. So what we did is we compared 2019 values from the previous Q2 reports, which did only include 16 counties at the time for WIN versus the 19 counties that WIN currently encompasses, but it is still going to give us some meaningful data for comparison. So looking at the gender distribution for this report, 2023 Q2 versus 2019 Q2, healthcare overall was slightly less diverse from a gender perspective. So in this case, we had the 80.3% female against 19.7% male in Q2 2023, whereas in 2019, we had sorry, let me check my notes here. This was 79% female. So we are seeing more of a trend towards increased female participation in the healthcare labor force, but again, it was a very mild increase comparing against 4 years ago. Looking at the race demographic trends, 2023 was more diverse compared with Q2 2019. And looking from the largest groups to the smallest groups in terms of the top three, we had 67.8% white compared with 2019, which was 70.2%. And then in the second and third largest subgroups, there was lower representation by the Asian population, but higher representation from the Black or African American population. So even despite the gender disparity that we saw, there is increasing participation from historically underrepresented groups from a race and ethnicity standpoint, excuse me. Worker age, we found to be the most interesting because the findings were that there were fewer workers overall in the middle grouping, which is that age band of 25 to 54. In fact, 2023 had greater representation in both the 14 to 24 age group as well as the 55 and older age group. So we're seeing much more workforce participation in healthcare from very young workers and those that are closer to retirement age. So in the 14 to 24 age group, it was 9.5%, as we can see this time, versus just 8.2%. In the 2019 report. And then for the 55 and older age group, it's 22.9 against what was previously 21.9% in terms of age representation. Next slide, please. Looking at the top posted jobs, there was actually quite a significant increase during Q2. So overall, there were more than 64,000 job postings in the WIN region for healthcare alone. And this was not only a meaningful number by itself, but it also represented more than a 4,000 job increase from Q1. Now, I will say that when we looked at all of the occupation groups for the WIN region reports, we did see an increase across the board in terms of job postings, but healthcare was pretty significant, adding 4,000 additional job postings over the levels that we saw in Q1. Probably one of the more meaningful data points, though, when we compared against the 2019 report, is that we can see the number 2 healthcare occupation now is home health and personal care aides. Now, with the aging workforce, it's probably no surprise that there is an increased demand for that. But what struck us as meaningful was how far that occupation jumped. So from 2019, the report from Q2 was just 2,034 individuals in that specific occupation versus 4,889 that we can see now. So that vaulted home health and personal care aides from what was previously the 6th most in-demand occupation to the number 2 most in-demand occupation. No surprise, registered nurses, still the number 1 occupation group by far. Registered nurses, even among entry-level workers, tends to be one of the highest in-demand occupations across all occupation groups. So not a big surprise there, but noting that the number of home health and personal care aides had risen so much was pretty meaningful. Now, one thing I do want to get into, and Jan, we can either bring this up when we look at the career profiles, or we could have a mention of it here, but looking at the number 3 and number 4 positions, medical assistants and nursing assistants, Jan has been very kind to help educate the data team on why some of this data can be misleading and how it may not be as representative as we would like it to be. So this gives us a good opportunity to discuss what some of the data limitations are when we are compiling these reports, insofar as the occupations that are defined for us are from the data provider Lightcast. So even though the job position, medical assistant, is very nebulous, the data that we are provided shows these positions as being very high in demand. So Jan, did you want to offer any clarification on that at this point, or should we touch on that during the profile view?
Well, I'll give an example here. You're going to notice over on the right-hand side of the screen, surgical technologist is listed. And if you remember a couple meetings or so ago, we had a presentation on anesthesia technologist. And so I went out and to run the data on anesthesia technologist, and there is no data on that. There's a job title, but no data. And so I contacted Lightcast, where this information is received from, and asked them about that. And they said, well, there are positions for anesthesia techs, but at this point they combine them with surgical tech. And I said to them, I said, well, that's not going to help, because surgical technologists and anesthesia technologists are two very different occupations with different skills, different sets of knowledge. And so every time I run across one of those kinds of things, I do put in writing to Lightcast. So hopefully over time we'll get more granular data that will be more helpful, because right now, in order to see how many anesthesia tech positions there are using data, you have to go through surgical technologist positions and pick through it and look at the job postings and see what the responsibilities are to determine if it really is a surgical technologist or if it is an anesthesia technologist. So that's what that's what Kevin was trying to make clear about the limitations of some of this. And also, I wanted to explain why some of it, because some of you employers sitting there, I know, are thinking, you have this critical need, but it's not on the list. Well, it might be on the list in another category. So that was Kevin's point. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity to explain that.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. So again, we can only do so much with the data. We really hope that Jan reaching out and us reaching out to get access to more granular levels of these job postings will be fruitful in the future. But for the time being, this is the data we have to work with. I do think the key takeaways from those first two occupations, though, are very clear. Registered nurses have been very much high demand for a very long time now, so not a big surprise there. And then seeing the home health and personal care aides really vault up, probably not a huge surprise to many people with the aging demographic workforce as well. So the key takeaways are still probably obvious to just about everyone, but as Jan said, if you see an occupation that you know is very high in demand, but it's not listed here, it's probably a matter of Lightcast grouping them in with one of these other occupations, such as medical assistants or nursing assistants. And one last point on this slide that I wanted to highlight is just the number of opportunities available in healthcare without significant education requirements. We can use the legend on the right-hand side of the screen, the lower right of the slide there, to see that although registered nursing, of course, requires the bachelor's degree in many cases, when it comes to home health and personal care aides, the conglomerate of medical assistants and nursing assistants, everything that encompasses those listings, there's far lower educational requirements. So the barriers to entry for healthcare are not nearly as daunting as they might be for some other occupations where you see bachelor's degree just across the board, or doctoral degree being required for very high level positions. So overall, the takeaway for us is that healthcare is very accessible to a large portion of the labor market. Next slide, please. Thanks, Jan. Looking at the top posted jobs, probably, again, no surprise, the registered nursing wages are very high up there. It does align with what somebody might expect for a bachelor's degree requiring position. Though one of the takeaways from the healthcare occupation grouping as a whole is that many of the top posted jobs that require less than a bachelor's degree do pay under the state's median wage of $21.88 per hour. So overall, the careers that are in high demand, but that don't require as much educational credentialing, do not pay as well as the state median wage across all occupations. So some of them are much more to that degree than others. If we look at medical records specialists at the bottom of the table here, we can see that the median wage there is very close to the state median wage, but others are much further away, such as the home health and personal care aides. So, of course, there's a number of challenges statewide that affect the wages in some of these positions, and some of them probably much more easy to impact than others, but healthcare overall does see a trend of having below median wages, specifically for those jobs that require less than a bachelor's degree. Now, the good news is that 6 of the top 10 jobs overall pay over $20.12 per hour, with medical records specialists being the baseline there. So in addition to that, we can see that 5 of those other positions pay above, and some even well above, the state median wage of $21.88 per hour. And that is all for that slide. If you could go to slide 5 for me, Jan, thank you. Now we can see another example here of the limitations of the data that we have access to when we look at the in-demand technical skills. It's difficult for us to quantify what is nursing compared with what is nursing care. And the best thing that I can offer in terms of when we are analyzing this data is that these specific terms go back to the data scraping that Lightcast performs. So what this suggests to us is that some employers may simply use the term nursing in their job postings, while others are more specific by stating nursing care. Now, in most cases, I'm sure this is interchangeable, but again, it represents one of the limitations within Lightcast. How do we quantify this difference if it is indeed meant to differentiate one from the other when an employer is posting for these technical skills, foundational skills, or certifications? Now, when we compared the certifications to 2019, we did see some shifting, but overall, the qualifications across the board are still very consistent with what employers have been looking for in the past couple of years. Next slide, please. More of the same on this slide as well, although one trend that we identified from 2019 is that there are many more employers posting a education level full stop. When we looked at the percentages offered by Lightcast during that time period, we observed lower percentages for every level of education that employers were posting for. So lower percentages of those asking for a high school or GED, lower percentage of those asking for an associate's, bachelor's, or master's. So overall, there are more employers that are including education specifically in their job postings. And overall, we saw quite an increase in bachelor's and master's degree specific education levels, with masters increasing from the 6% range up to the 11% range. So nearly double the number of higher ed requirements compared with 2019 job postings as they were provided to the data team at the time. And that is everything from the Q2 labor market updates. So Jan, if you don't mind, I would be happy to do a quick walkthrough looking at those career profiles. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great, Kevin. I just had to unmute myself.
Oh,
So,
sure. So we are on the workforce, Michigan Workforce Career and Resource Guide slide here, which I do want to give credit where it's due. Alicia Albrecht, one of our team members here at WIN, did a phenomenal job pulling this together during 2023. I would call it a labor of love, but I think it's more apt to just refer to this as her baby. So Alicia, if you don't mind, I'd love to do a plug and show everyone how to access the guide, if that's all right.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful, Kevin. Thank you.
Perfect. Let me get over to my screen here, and then I'll borrow
As Kevin, sorry, is pulling up his screen, I just want to mention what he's going to share is definitely a labor of love. We spent the last year really working on this. And so as he's flipping through it, if you see someone that's not in here, that's a stakeholder that has to deal with workforce or is dealing in the workforce situation or has opportunities, please reach out to us. We can definitely add you to the guide. I have templates I can send you. I can work with your communications team. In some cases, I've edited the templates and send it back for approval. So we're really flexible. We just want this to be an all-encompassing guide.
Yeah, perfect description. Thanks, Alicia. And I do want to also highlight more of what Alicia said, that I really can't speak highly enough of everything that's available in this. So for those that haven't accessed it before, you can simply go to your browser and type Win Career and Resource Guide. It pops up as the very first option here. We'll go ahead and click through to the link. So it's also very nicely broken out on our website currently. So we have a number of different links that we can click directly into, but for our purposes right now, I'm going to jump to the career profiles and then we can go back, but I really wanted to highlight how flexible this is. So we can see if you're going for just the one thing, you want to jump right to the career profiles, you can easily do so. But then you can also access the entire report. We can download all the labor market data, the career profiles. So it really is flexible in how it's been set up on the website itself. So we can download the full resource here. Alicia, I'll let you do that afterwards if you'd like to. For the career profiles, I just want to quickly jump over. We can see that, of course, when we designed this, we did want to be inclusive of as many occupation groups as we could. So there are a number of non-healthcare occupations here, but I'm just going to flip through until we get to one of our first ones here. So the layout for each of these is essentially the same. We tried to offer as much data as we could in a miniaturized format. So everything is very compressed, but it is very resourceful. Lots of information included on each one of these. But just to demonstrate the similarities, if we go to home health and personal care aides, I'll use this one because we did highlight it as a growing need in Michigan. We can see the layout is very similar. We do offer a brief description for whoever might be using these, whether it's a career counselor or somebody working with high school students, college age students, incumbent workers, anybody who might be using these to try and drive interest to that part of the workforce can show them a lot of different data points. So we have descriptions, we have the number of workers currently employed in the state of Michigan. We show them the wage opportunities, not only for entry level and median, but also for experienced workers. I'm going to zoom in here and show one of the other highlights that we really liked when we were developing these. So we here at WIN have probably come up with 5 or 6 names for this particular graphic here. Some of us have called it the pinwheel, others have called it the, oh gosh, Alicia, I'm sure you probably have at least 3 or 4. We came up with quite a few, but in any event, the nice thing about this particular graphic is that it shows from most related to least related the skill set overlap from one career to another. So this is one of the things that we think makes the career profiles very flexible, because it not only shows them what a career opportunity looks like for this specific job, it shows them where their skills will also translate if they wanted to make a lateral move or advance their career in another opportunity. Lightcast does this breakdown for us. So they look at the skill overlap from one career to those that are most closely related to it. So when we look at somebody who may be interested in home health and personal care aides, of course, they're having a hard time getting more and more of those workers, but this is a really great opportunity to show them, hey, you can develop skills in this career that can lead you towards becoming a nursing assistant or a first-line supervisor, housekeeping, psychiatric aides. So it's really neat that Lightcast is able to provide that overlap for us. And then we also highlight the education and skills needs, the areas of study that they should consider. And then again, we see more of those soft skills, the foundational skills and qualifications as well. And then lastly, we provide projected growth through the next 5 years. And then we also highlighted the number of program completions. But again, just as some of the other data we highlighted, it is subject to the limitations from any of the data sourcing that we participate in. So a really great opportunity to share this resource with people you may know. And if anyone wants to share how they might otherwise use this guide, please feel free to interrupt me here. Lots of other opportunities, again, with these career profiles. So Alicia, did you want me to also navigate to the other part of the resource guide?
Yeah, I think just if you don't mind, go through
Sure.
yep, the full guide and just kind of show them how it's all encompassing. So as you're just paging through, again, this guide is almost over 100 pages. It goes over the WIN initiatives. It breaks them down individually. There's the Health Careers Alliance. Then we have labor market data on those top occupations. So transportation, there's definitely a healthcare one in there. And then we have all of our board pages. So again, who are those training providers within the WIN region, who are our Michigan Works that you can connect people to. And then we have the stakeholder pages. So this is where, again, these are the people also doing the workforce work. And it's so important that we collaborate and we come together. So as he's flipping through this, if you see someone and you're like, oh, they should be on here, again, please reach out to us. We will get them added. This guide is supposed to be updated until 2027. And then we hope to secure another grant that will allow us to update it again. So then we go through the career profiles that Kevin is flipping through. And then that is the end of the guide. So lots of data, lots of information, really meant to be used for, career counselors, your CTE programs, but also just for the career seeker too. If someone's interested in an occupation, there's the data that kind of shows that as well. I could talk at length about this, but I know we have some great presentations coming up. So is there any other questions? I saw a question in the chat about Kevin's email. Yes, we will definitely put that on there. Great. Excellent resource. Thank you, Jennifer. We spent a lot of time on it and we really wanted it to be excellent for everyone. So we're always open to feedback here at WIN. Please let us know if it's missing something that you think it should have as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues, Kevin and Dae-Young and Alicia, because they just work endlessly on this kind of thing, these kinds of things for our partners and extended partners. So I really appreciate all the work that they do, and they make it look so pretty. And that's important too. But one thing I want to say back to the Lightcast, Kevin has mentioned Lightcast a few times, and as you know, I'm a former workforce occupational dean, and I remember when Lightcast first came on the scene, so to speak, as a data resource, probably 15 years ago. I remember going up to Lansing to a, to a webinar or meeting of community college workforce people around the state so that this real-time labor market data resource could be introduced to all of us here in Michigan. And it is really neat. There were two major companies, if you will, that had competing products. One was called MC. It's EMSI, and it was economic modeling something. And then the other one was called Burning Glass, and I've worked with both of them. And they merged to create this Lightcast. But this is real-time labor market data. So if Kevin were to go in today, the data would be pulling from postings that are today. So the reason that that's important is because this data is used widely. Lightcast is used very widely, especially by education providers, because they're going on there and seeing what jobs, occupations are in the highest demand, and then what skill sets and knowledge are needed. That's what informs the development of programs. And so that's why that data is very important, and it comes from whatever the employer puts on their posting. So I know in healthcare, from my experience in healthcare education, that a lot of times postings don't even make, or jobs don't even make it to postings, because a lot of educational programs, if not all of them, have a clinical education component. So while students are doing clinical education with an employer, if the employer is anticipating an opening, they could very well recruit that student that upon completion just slides into that opening and it never makes it to a posting. So just keep that in mind, that if you do have that situation, that's great. You know, I think all the educators want you to hire their students right upon completion, so that's a great thing. But if you could still go through with that posting, again, just so that it lands in the data that that position was opened, and here was the skills and knowledge and certifications and all of that sort of information, it will just make the Lightcast data more accurate and more usable for, like I said, educators and a whole lot of other workforce development professionals that use Lightcast data. So just wanted to add that final thought. So again, thank you, Dae-Young and Kevin and Alicia, and we are going to move on then if there's no other questions or comments on that. Okay. So let me get my right screen up here. Okay, our next group, boy, we are right on time too. I'm really excited about the next group. We talked about the Health Careers Alliance was all about research, right? Our 3 pillars: research, convening, which is what we're doing today, and solutions. And so we have some groups of speakers that are going to finish us out today that are talking about some of those innovative solutions. And I have talked a lot about the pre-licensure RN registered apprenticeship that was signed a year ago almost. And today we have Dr. Malia Mariani from Corewell Health Ludington, Shelley Bose, nursing director from West Shore Community College, and Michael Masters, dean of West Shore Community College, just to give an update of where that program is. And again, I applaud them because they are real pioneers and innovators to take something like this on. And so kudos to you. So I'm going to turn it now over to, if you have, I don't know if you have slides or not, but either way, you can just talk too. So let you take it from here.
Thank you, Jen. Oh, go ahead, Malia.
No, I was just going to say, Shelley, are you going to start? You started us on this journey, so.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We are just thrilled to be able to be at this point and present it. I know Malia and I got together, over a year ago now. I know Kevin mentioned, the RN need in the state is great, and it is great on the west side of the state as well as the southeast part of the state. And so Malia and I got together and we just got to chatting about it. And the pre-licensure RN apprenticeship really seemed to make a lot of sense to both of us. And we talked about it, and Malia really, a lot of credit goes to Malia because she is the one who really took on the bulk and the lift for this, and for writing it and doing it and getting it through Corewell. And so kudos to you. We are just really thrilled to be able to have this as an opportunity. We're just starting. We're in that beginning phase of interviewing students. We've had students apply, and that's kind of where we are from my end as the educational part. We're just partnering with her. Malia's taken our outcomes and is aligning that with her apprenticeship. And so as the students go through the apprenticeship, they're using what they're learning in class and clinical here. So I'm just going to turn it over to Malia now.
All right. Well, thanks, Shelley and Janice. to everyone. I see there's like 60 some people on. So hello, everyone. I'm Malia Mariani. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer for Corewell Health Ludington Hospital. So if I'm not sure if everybody here is from Michigan. I think everyone's from Michigan. So you probably all know where Ludington is, but we're in the north. We're a rural area. And so our partnerships with our community college, we are very grateful and fortunate to have a nursing program in our area. Not everyone has that. So when Shelley reached out to me and said, hey, Janice is going to do some presenting on apprenticeships, I really did not know at all what to expect. But I'm like, hey, I'll look at anything because, as we've talked about with the nursing workforce shortage, and I like to look at different things, new, innovative things. And, apprenticeship, although I've learned a lot more about the term and the formal apprenticeship, registering an apprenticeship, working with the Department of Labor, it resonated with the nursing world a little bit about like residencies, and just what I thought about is just that transition to practice and how, those of us that work in the hospital or acute care settings, we're always trying to figure out how do we partner better with our schools of nursing to help that transition. So to me, that was one of the greatest benefits that I thought I was hearing about as I was learning the apprentice. And I would agree now even more that this is going to make their transition much easier. And what I see in new grads is they are stressed out and they are usually working night shift. And here at Corewell, which is pretty much a lot of other healthcare organizations, they have to go right back and get that bachelor's degree. So you put those things together and it's like anything we can do to help ease the transition in their first year or two is really important. So a couple of things I think that are just key. Initially, people were saying, well, you're never going to get that in nursing because, they have to have a license. They can't do things without a license, scope of practice, So that's why Shelley mentioned, we really just looked at designing the work processes, which is the document for the apprenticeship. We just designed them to kind of flow along with the program. And so obviously these are nursing students from West Shore. And so the idea with our apprenticeship is Shelley teaches them, they get that classroom experience, they get experience in their clinicals because that stays intact. They still do all of their classroom hours. They still do all of their clinical hours that are required through the School of Nursing. Then they come to us and they do the 2,000 hours of shadowing, practicing, things like that, where they can learn from an experienced mentor. So really, that's kind of how the program is set up, and that's how the document was written. So initially, I saw some verbs in other examples of work processes that said things like administers. Okay, we would not have a nursing student or an apprentice administering something in the hospital until they were licensed. So we really were very careful, I think, about selecting our verbs, aligned them with our outcomes and the objectives of Shelley's nursing program. And so that's our plan. As Shelley said, was a long road getting us approved through the Department of Labor. That was an experience in and of itself. The terminology that the government uses, the pace at which they move, just a little bit different. So we had to kind of learn from each other. And we are at the point now where we are recruiting for 2 pre-licensure registered nurse apprentice out of Shelley's program. We have posted the positions and we are in the process of setting up interviews and hoping for them to begin their journey as our first in the state, first in the country that we know of, pre-licensed registered nurse apprentice in December.
Thank you, Malia and Shelley. As I've expressed before, I'm so excited about this. I love new, innovative things. And so I was so excited when they reached out to me and asked me tell us more about this apprenticeship thing, because it does a couple of things. Like Malia mentioned, it's expedites time to practice. So if a nursing student is not only going through the the full nursing program, including the clinical, they also are, their clinical experience is being enhanced because they're working at the hospital with structured outcomes, which is the work process according to the USDOL. That's what they title it. But that's just enhanced clinical experience. And what can be built into that work process is all the things that an employer would require of a new grad nursing right out of a program, right after they get their license, they hire into their first job. And then a lot of times there's a pretty lengthy onboarding or residency program, orientation, whatever it's called in an employer's, that a nurse has to go through before they can work more independently. And so those kind of outcomes of that residency or onboarding program can be embedded in the on-the-job training, so that when they finish their nursing program, they have their license, they are ready to be more independent than a new nurse grad. So that is one big benefit of it. Now, right now, Malia has decided that she wanted to start this by hiring her apprentices out of Shelley's nursing program. But she also has mentioned that she would like to advance some of the incumbent workers down the road. And an apprenticeship allows for that, because an apprenticeship allows you to tap into a population of people that couldn't necessarily pursue a traditionally scheduled nursing program because they have to work full-time and get full-time wages and benefits. So another big benefit of an apprenticeship program is it allows those people that are working full-time to enter into a more advanced position, higher wages, advanced with regard to responsibility and what have you, and not have to quit their job, which they couldn't do because they have family and obligations and things like that. So they've only just begun, I believe. I think the next step as they get their apprentices going, they're going to be figuring out how to advance those incumbent workers and get those people ready to be enrolled in the West Shore Nursing Program. So kudos to you. It's been a long time coming. That's the other thing I want to say is there's a lot of opportunity for programs like this and a lot of challenges for programs like this. You know, innovation, new things are messy and frustrating and maddening at times, but I think that's part of the process. And so, you know, you guys stuck it out and here you are now interviewing your first two apprentices. And the reason I invited them is because this was built with the idea that it could be available to any employer. So they've built it. So if this is something other employers want to do, you know, now it just has to be replicated for your partners and your organization. So great. Questions for Malia and Shelley? Yeah, Renee.
So just a couple questions. So Malia, when you said they couldn't administer during the apprenticeship program, but they could during their clinical rotation at the hospital, I'm assuming under as a traditional nursing program would allow for. Is that the distinction?
Correct. So, and that's an important piece. Thanks for that question, because we're really keeping sort of two separate parallel tracks. So as a student, they have a clinical instructor who's there and they're under the, you know, the protection and guidance of the school. As an apprentice, they are in sort of like an unlicensed assistive personnel job code. So they have their own job code here as an employee. And that's one of the things that as we operationalize this, we have to make sure that the apprentice understands. When you come in and punch in as an apprentice and you are an employee of Corewell Health, this is your scope. This is what you can do. And when you're here with a student, it's a different, you know, you're in a different path. So I think that will be one of the things that as we go along, we'll continue to emphasize, and it might make some interesting, you know, stories down the road to say, how did we manage that? So we do want to make sure that we're monitoring that very closely. We just had an orientation session with our mentors, and that was a big piece that we stressed, is that they wear two hats. So they are an employee when they're doing their apprenticeship. They are an employee of the hospital, and they stay within the scope of their job description. And as an apprentice, though, they will get to observe a lot of things like medication administration, and they'll get to practice documenting in we have Epic as our electronic health records. So they might, come in and focus, let's say they're in their pharmacology course with Shelley, and, they're learning about medication administration. So they'll observe it. They'll read the policies that we have around safe medication administration. And then they'll be able to practice like how they document and that kind of a thing with our Epic, what we call playground. It's the practice thing. So we plan to have them working with our clinical informaticist nurse as well. So they'll get that really focused time on, here's how you use the electronic health record to work with you, not against you, because sometimes we want to fight with those EMRs. So I really look forward to that too, because I think our apprentice will come out with so much influence from Kathy, our clinical informaticist, who's just a rock star. They're going to be like our very best documenters. So.
Okay, and my last question, this might not be for you, but will it be WIN that will be putting out essentially the template or the pathways for how this will be used, both with a straight apprenticeship program and with someone in a nursing school or an incumbent worker? Is it WIN that's going to be really putting that out and spreading that information?
We can. And why I say that is because, like Shelley and Malia explained in their presentation, is that they were curious to understand more about apprenticeship, and they knew that, I was a real advocate for it in healthcare. So they contacted me, but I looped in their local Michigan Works agency, who is serving as their intermediary and holder of their standards. So I drafted the Appendix A, the work process, but then Malia and Shelley and their local Michigan Works agency took it from there and revised it and fine-tuned it. So if an employer wants WIN to serve as the intermediary, they would work with the education provider, you as the employer, to help formulate that work process for the apprenticeship that you would want to build. So, okay, does that answer it, Renee? Okay. Let's see, there are questions coming here. Yes, we will get you Malia's information.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to get some contacts, reach outs from this meeting, Malia.
That's fine. And I see there's a question from Lynette. I started typing it, but I can't type and pay attention.
Yeah.
So, the mentors, how do we get them on board? I'd like to just share that, because actually we're very, very fortunate and blessed here to have a lot of really great nurses. And as a rural hospital, we tend to have a lot of longevity, right? And so we really started to be very proactive looking ahead at our staffing. Historically, what we would do is it's be like, okay, Malia's retiring, next week or in a month. And we start to, we got a poster position, and we're behind the 8 ball all the time. So we've been talking with our nurses that have either expressed to us, or, we don't want to go and say, hey, Malia, you've been here 38 years. Are you going to retire soon? We don't want to do that. HR doesn't really like us to do that. But we have good relationships with several of our senior nurses. And, several have told us, I'm going to retire probably in the next 2 to 3 years. Some say probably the next 5 years. So we actively targeted those individuals and said, don't take it with you. You have an excellence in your practice. We value your practice. Please do not go out the door with 35, 40 years of experience and take it with you. Leave it here. And we had a couple nurses with longevity leave during the pandemic. And I was like, You know, there were 2 of them in the ED, one with 38 years, one with 40 years. I'm like, there's 78 years of nursing experience walking out the door. And we still try to get them to come back in some way. And we may have them actually do like a luncheon with the apprentice to just try to share some of this, you know, some of the the pearls of nursing. So so that's how we got them to participate. Is we were fortunate enough that we had some really great folks to begin with. They liked the idea of don't take it with you. That was my plea to them. Please don't take it with you.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat, but Penny has her hand up. So Penny, do you have a question?
Yes, I had a question. I was wondering, was the apprenticeship program similar to a nurse externship program, just with the educational piece tied to it?
Kind of. Yes and no. I think the benefit is that it does flow pretty much along with Shelley's program. It's very well aligned and tied to. So I think that whole transition to practice is unique in this. And then the benefits of being an apprentice, obviously, with having that Michigan Works liaison coach. I call him the concierge at Michigan Works, because as we know, school is tough. And again, we're fortunate with West Shore. There's not a big dropout rate. I don't want anybody to leave. And I don't want anybody to struggle. Sometimes people have to take a pause and come back. We want them to get into school and stay into school and be very successful. So I call it the social determinants of school. So those things that Janice was kind of talking about before is like, they'll have this coach that walks beside them and says, I'll get you to the gym. We will do our workout, and they say, what are your barriers? Well, childcare, transportation, shoes, uniforms, a stethoscope. Like, I can't afford all this, Fortunately, here we have promise zones. Several of our counties are promise zones. So high school students can take advantage of tuition assistance through the promise zone program. But we all know that there's a lot of other factors that impact your success in college other than just the tuition. So there's a lot of those benefits, and it's kind of packaged up nice because yes, a nurse extern could potentially go out and seek assistance and different things, but this is all packaged up, and we really want to make the students very successful. I think about what we do as nurses to help patients be successful. We have patient navigators, and we just try to help them stay on the path. And that's what I think the difference is in this, is that this is a little bit more formalized. And again, having those mentors that are really committed to, they're not leaving our organization. They're here to kind of help pass this along. So
Okay, thank you.
There is a question in the chat, but we've got to get moving along a little bit. So Kelly is really interested in the duties that the apprentices will be doing. I have your Appendix A. It was given to me by West Central, by Julie. And so if you don't have any problems with me sharing that kind of list of duties with other people, then I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to have you come back at another time to update this group on how it's going as you get your people hired and get them started. We'd love to have you come back and update us. So
sounds good. And I can, if I'm not talking, I can just go into the chat and I'll try to answer a few questions in there and put my contact information in. So
okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Shelley. It was you that got this together, started this. So.
absolutely. I know she always gives me all the credit, but she's the one that I would have, had she not reached out, we would have never made those connections. So just never underestimate the power of collaboration, and somebody has to get the ball rolling. Absolutely.
And I can't stress enough, it does open up that population of people that have to work. And some of those people have degrees and are working in other industries. Some of them have degrees and are your Starbucks baristas. And, it's hard. Nursing school is hard. And most of our nursing students have to work in some capacity. while they're going through school. So why not have them work as a nurse apprentice? I was on a college campus not that long ago, and I ran into a woman that was a little bit lost, and she wanted me to direct her. And so I walked her to the department that she was looking for. And on the way, she mentioned to me that she'd been a teacher, public school teacher for a lot of years, and now she was pursuing dental hygiene as a different career. So there are people out there that are looking to change careers. And so we just got to be innovative and resourceful to make that happen for them through things like an apprenticeship. So thank you very much. And I am going to introduce our next speaker. Okay, let me get my screens back. Yeah, here we go. Okay, the next two speakers are Dr. Amy Lee and Liz Flutie. Liz is a nursing education consultant. She's been a program director. She's at a college. She's taught all different levels of associate degree nursing. And of course, Dr. Amy Lee has been here many times. So I've been talking a lot about this workforce LPN program that would be accessible statewide specifically for the incumbent worker, again, through an apprenticeship. Those people that want to advance from maybe CNA or medical assistant into an LPN and maybe someday an RN. And they're going to update us on where they are. Again, like I said, these things take time. So I wanted them to at least step in today and give us an idea where that's going. So Amy and Liz, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Liz, do you want me to start?
That'd be great, Amy.
Okay. So Jan invited myself and several other community colleges to a work group for, actually there were a lot of nursing directors at the various hospitals. Some of you are probably on that work group, and discussed your need for the LPN. So to understand what MW Tech does is we really go out and try to find the educational partner that will align well with the needs that the employers are asking for. And so the first place we always want to try, obviously, is our community colleges. And they have robust nursing programs. Many of them had LPN programs, some no longer have. There are a few that still have consistent. And so in that process, I reached out to Liz first, actually, because Liz has for years, she and I have worked together for almost 20 years now, for years talked about how she wants to kind of be innovative and develop more. And she has ideas around things, especially while she was a nursing director. So Liz and I met, had conversations. We talked about some of I wouldn't call them barriers, but there can be areas that create a little bit of extra work when we're trying to be innovative. You know, we have the State Board of Nursing we have to work through. We have accreditation that we have to work through. And so our colleges, of course, when they have these programs that are accredited, there are more things that they have to consider when they want to do innovative things as well. So I reached out to Liz, and I'm going to have Liz just kind of give a high level of some of the things that we've come across. But I just, from the MW Tech's perspective, I want you to know there is a group of community colleges that are meeting. We're actually connecting on the 25th. Most of us will be face-to-face at what's called the Trends Conference. And we're going to talk through kind of a model that exists already, how we could, what Liz will tell you is capitalize on all of the things that are allowed within a program to help make it as innovative as possible. And then with the hopes to be able to deliver back a plan of action from our college partners. And just know that if the college route doesn't work, there are other options that are out there as well. So I just want you to know that we're exploring everything that we possibly can to try to help support our employers. So Liz, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, great. Can you guys hear me? Yay. Thank you, Amy. So, yep, we've been meeting and talking about, initiating some changes in nursing curriculum for quite a bit of time now. And what we typically see, or we just saw it in this meeting, the need for nurses, RNs, LPNs, nurse aides. I've been able to work in both nursing education and in nurse aid. So I definitely see the need. So Amy and I have been working with talking to the State Board of Nursing, talking with accreditors to take those State Board of Nursing rules that are already there and use them to the fullest. So examples would be like taking your CNA and or your medical assistant who already have the previously learned skills, bring them in, check them off on the skills already learned, which would decrease the amount of time spent on that, and then utilizing the State Board of Nursing rules for simulation, which says in the med-surg courses, simulation can be up to 50% of the clinical time, which would take the burden off of clinical sites. And then for OB-PEDS, 100% of that course for lab and simulation could be in simulation. So using that, putting classes online so that the student doesn't have to drive, and then utilizing that employer perhaps for a clinical site or a simulation site or a lab checkoff site, and for those clinicals. And lastly, incorporating the preceptor model into the capstone project. Amy and I talked just as recently as last night. A lot of schools have an LPN to RN program. Not many have anything leading up to that LPN that could speed that up. The State Board of Nursing says no matter what we do, we have to have at least a 40-week program that could include the prereqs, but taking the skills that the students already know and then using those nursing rules to our advantage to get that student out there on the floor working, getting the hands-on experience, and even exploring things like virtual reality simulation and incorporating that. So we've been working with some college groups and talking about things, and that's kind of where we are right now, trying to overcome just a couple of barriers, you know, that the state is putting out there or accreditors wants or needs. So I think that's where we're at. Does that sound right to you, Amy and Jan?
Nursing education is really structured for good reason. And so it is, like I've used this word before, it is messy to try to be innovative within the confines of the rules of the State Board of Nursing as well as accreditation. But those people that make up those entities are nurses, and they understand, and they are willing to work with it without losing any integrity of the education. It's just thinking differently and utilizing the emerging technology that's coming out every day to simulate some of the things that couldn't be simulated only a few years ago. So, you know, again, it's going to take a little bit of time, but they're on it, and they're on it diligently. And so I appreciate them coming and giving us an update. So any questions for Liz and Amy? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate it. We are going to move on to our next speakers. I'm really excited about. I've been mentioning this program as well for quite some time, and I believe it is. Get my screen up here again. Okay, it is ready to launch. It's I'm not going to say much about it. I'm going to let them do the talking, but today we have Dr. Paula Schreck and Dr. Cindy Schur from Henry Ford College and Dr. Amy Lee, again, to talk about the new. It's actually not new because Dr. Schreck has been teaching this for a long time, but the way it is delivered and to whom it's delivered and how it's delivered is different. So I'm going to turn this over to them to talk about the lactation specialist program.
You're muted. I think you're muted, Dr. Schreck.
Yes, how about that?
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting me today. My name is Paula Schreck. I am a pediatrician by training, and an internationally board certified lactation consultant, also known as IBCLC. And I'm also a fellow of the Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine. And I'm here to tell you about a groundbreaking, innovative program that we call the Lactation Consultant Program, which is actually only one of 10 in the world and only one of 9 in the United States. And we're the only program that's embedded in a community college. And I have brought my colleague, I'm accompanied by my colleague, Dr. Scheuer, who is the Dean of Health Sciences at Henry Ford College, and was part of the team that actually considered adopting this program when there was really not much precedent in the United States. So talk about innovative spirit. I think I definitely found a hotbed of that. And so I'm hoping to tell you a little bit about the program, and then Dr. Scheuer can back me up because she is an expert in the prerequisite part and how this program can fit into this conversation. What is a internationally board certified lactation consultant? Well, it is the highest designation in lactation. I'm a physician, but I'm still an IBCLC because there's not even a physician designation for this. So the highest designation in lactation support is the internationally board certified lactation consultant. And it has been around for about 35 years. There's about 30,000 IBCLCs in the world, and it is an international designation. The accreditation is run through an independent testing body that is actually based in the United States called IBLCE. There are multiple ways to become a lactation consultant, actually 3. One is that you can be a healthcare professional with a degree like myself, or a nurse, pharmacist, social worker, or dietitian. You can accrue hours. You have to accrue 1,000 hours of direct patient care and lactation on the job. You also have to take 100 hours of lactation-specific education. And then you have to pass the test, but you kind of get credit. You don't have any additional college requirements because you already have a health science degree, and you get credit for on-the-job experience. It usually takes someone about 3 to 5 years to navigate Pathway 1. However, remember this fact that in the United States, most lactation consultants are RN, IBCLCs, and they have approached it in this manner. But the spirit of internationally board certified lactation consultant, and the most common way to approach it in the world, is not through a health science degree, but actually through your commitment to the community. And so there's Pathway 3, which allows women to, if they can access the 100 hours of education, which are available in some settings online, they can accrue mentored clinical experience. They require 500 hours, have to pass the same test as the doctors and nurses, etc. But then they can approach IBCLC on that manner. However, that pathway requires some additional college courses, about average 20 credits, depending on the institution, of basic college level science, anatomy and physiology, child development, research, etc. So we are neither Pathway 1 or Pathway 3. What has happened in the United States is that most of the lactation consultants have gone through Pathway 1, and we know that the healthcare field is relatively undiversified, so they're mostly white nurses. Pathway 3 is very difficult in the United States because our hospitals are not open to mentorship like they used to be. You can't just call up a friend that works in a hospital and follow them around and put your hands on patients. So it's really hard to access the mentorship hours. I did have a Pathway 3 program. I got around that barrier by employing the students as an employee, but that's expensive. It required a lot of philanthropic support and wasn't sustainable. And after 3 years, I only trained 9 people. So my dream was to grow up to be a Pathway 2 program. So Pathway 2 is where the education and the mentorship is embedded in a post-secondary institution. And so it's been all women so far, so I'm going to let the individual, it can be men as well, the individual enrolls in a accredited college certificate program, which must, by standards, have all of the prerequisites available. Then they enroll in the lactation science class, which provides their 100 hours or approximately 100 hours of lactation specific college level education. Then they also enroll in additional credits through which they are able to accrue the mentored hours, which have to be at least 300. They get a certificate which allows them to take the test. So they get access to the mentorship because of their affiliation with the university. So we have been successful in running a accredited Pathway 2 program. We are in our 5th academic cycle in Southeast Michigan. We have grown we started out with 4 full-time students, and we've grown to 12. All the things that I was eavesdropping a little bit on Amy Lee's presentation. I believe that we'd applied a lot of these innovative techniques to our program, in that we've made it accessible by making the lactation science online. And but the real gift that this program gives to the community is that it's accessible to all. It's through a community college, and it's through a community college that is embedded in a community that needs lactation support, that is short on lactation support, and it has attracted a diverse pool of women. And so my graduating class, approaching 70% have identified as people of color. When we started the program in 2018, 2019, there were less than 20 IBCLCs who identified as people of color in the state. So we have really changed the face and disrupted the lactation field. Why is this important? Breastfeeding is a pivotal public health initiative, and it benefits the infant, the child, the birthing person, and the family. And it's so profound in its effect that any breastfeeding decreases the odds of dying in the first year of life in the United States, in a baby born in the United States, by 26%. But yet our breastfeeding outcomes are not what they should be. They're not up to anything close to Healthy People 2030 standards, or the standards of the Academy of Pediatrics, Academy of Family Practice, or ACOG. Beyond that, there's a huge racial disparity. And so there's a much lower breastfeeding outcomes in the Black population. And that is fueling the allostatic load of poor health generation after generation. And one of the systems barriers is that there is no Black lactation consultants in Michigan, or there weren't. And that really affects people's desire, trust, and ability to succeed. So one of the way that I am addressing disparities is at the systems level. So a couple of questions that come up is that people hear that hospitals only hire RN IBCLCs. Okay. Well, number one, that's because the United States, there were no other types of IBCLCs. But I'm here to tell you a couple things. Number one, not necessarily true anymore. I look at every single job description that comes across Indeed in the state of Michigan every week. I see every single one. 6, 7 years ago, they were all RN required. Now, 50%. Corewell Health released a job description at 8/23 that does not require an RN. Ascension does not require an RN. I have students employed all over Southeast Michigan. Henry Ford Health does not require an RN. So also, we have had good luck with advocating at the HR level and the leader level. When I see a job description that requires an RN, I send out what's called the package, which is a letter that's all jazzed up with letters and logos and whatnot to the HR director and the director of the birthing center, asking her to reconsider the job description, which we consider to be biased and antiquated. Number two, not all IBCLCs need to work in the hospital, and some, matter of fact, don't want to. It's a good job, but there's, did you know that every WIC in the state of Michigan must contract with an IBCLC? And there's so few IBCLCs that sometimes 10 WIC offices contract with the same one. That's not the spirit of that policy. It's just not enough. So many of my students have gone on to be employed as IBCLCs for WIC. Also, IBCLCs can be as part of home visiting agencies. There's also a robust gig economy with several national providers, Nest, Pacify, TLN, that require technical assistance for IBCLCs that are not RNs to get reimbursed even as private lactation consultants. I also have some that work in doctors' offices, chiropractors' offices, private entities like Honey for Moms, which is a nonprofit like maternal space in Ferndale, Michigan, that does classes, consults on mental health and infant feeding. So there's lots of opportunity. And in fact, for my graduating class, everyone that wants to be employed is employed. There's some that had another baby or they're continuing on in nursing school or something else. But everyone that wants to be employed is employed. As far as the certification exam, we have over a 90% pass rate for the international exam. The national rate is about 70 to 75%. So we're here today to promote the concept of putting our program out into the network so that students outside of Southeast Michigan can access the program, take our lactation class, and take advantage of the groundwork that we have built as far as prerequisite, but yet they can have their mentorship local. And we get emails, literally, I get one at least once a week. Dr. Scheuer, I believe you do too, from all across the state, women that would like to access this. And we've actually had some women have to relocate to Southeast Michigan, which, you know, we really want this to be a hyper local. We want women to train in their community and go out to serve in their community. And as you were talking about the LPNs, this is a career ladder. I've had some students go on to become RNs if they weren't already. Also to get, like, one of my students got a bachelor's in health administration. Many are doulas as well. So they can augment their income with a doula, which is now reimbursed by Medicaid. At the level of OBs, by the way, $700 to $900 per delivery. So there's lots of potential, but our limitation is our clinical mentorship sites in Southeast Michigan is that, you know, I've saturated my system, literally. It's wringing wet with lactation consultant students. And so being able to expand to other communities is a dream of ours. And we'd like to see if you have any questions on what that would look like. And then I have my two experts, Amy Lee, who's also been in this space of innovation with me, and Dr. Scheuer to help me out.
I think really the big initiative for us going into the collaboration was the huge demand in rural areas, and that includes a large part of Michigan. And that's where we've heard the communities really, really want these specialists in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their local community hospital and agencies. So that was really the driver of trying to get us into the collaborative to do that. At this point, everything except the clinicals can be done online. Or at your, and again, now all the other, the rest of the courses that are part of it are, public health, anatomy and physiology, those types of general education that makes sense for this. And it could easily transition into completing an associate's degree in either public health or health administration or something like that for those students that want to complete a degree. I think our program is 42 credits. I think that's what it is. I had it pulled up. Yes, it's 42 credits, including all of those prerequisites and the clinical hours and the lactation consultant specific coursework. So it is doable in a year and a half, depending on when, and some people have already kind of dabbled in some classes, and so they bring that with them. People that are CNAs, people that are LPNs, people that are RNs, we get a huge, and people that just really believe in the cause and really, really want to do good in their community. That's probably the biggest majority of students that inquire. They're in a community where they see there is a huge need and no support, and they want to be the first. We are so glad that now we don't have to keep saying, I'm so sorry. We only have clinical sites in Southeastern Michigan. We don't have availability. So hopefully this will enhance that opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll add from a collaborative standpoint. So I've been in contact with community colleges all over the state. There are a handful that are very interested in doing this. So we're working on the process of getting it up into their curriculum, ready to go. But I'll also note that for employers that are in a region that either doesn't have a community college or the community college can't serve, we still can participate with you. Dr. Schreck will still be the program director for those students in your area and your community. They will register through the same system as all the other students. They'll get their certification from Henry Ford or one of our other partners that may be a little bit closer to them, so that we can ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of the communities in the state of Michigan. That is our goal.
Very much interested in the Upper Peninsula. I have there's less than 10 IBCLCs in the Upper Peninsula. And so very underserved, and there's no women who identify as Indigenous in Michigan who are IBCLCs. Because they just haven't been able to access the mentorship hours and the hospital training. So they, that's not that I obviously am interested in other parts of the state, but I don't know if anyone is on here from the UP. Amy knows that I have particular interest because I do have someone that's interested in who's part of the Indigenous community, is interested in being a mentor. So that's one side I'm very interested in. But really, we get inquiries from all across the state, west side, north as far as Traverse City, Alpena, downriver, all over the place.
I have a question about the job, essentially. Yes. So I'm assuming that these people would work Monday through Friday day shift job, or is there call involved? I mean, what does their work day look like?
It is pretty much a day job. There's some of the big hospitals that do have night lactation consultants. I'm like probably one of the top 10 in a number of deliveries at Ascension with almost 3,500 deliveries. And I have one night lactation consultant. Corwell Butterworth has a couple. The Bronson larger hospital, Bronson Methodist, I believe, has one that works at night. But most of the time, the hospital-based IBCLCs are during the day. WIC is a day job. There's rarely call. There's not many breastfeeding emergencies. So it does provide a lot of flexibility. For example, some of our LCs that work for Nest or Pacify, they pick the days they want to work. They have small children, so they work on the weekend and do consults if they want. Or they work 2 days a week or 3 days a week. A lot of part-time availability. So it provides a lot of flexibility for the modern career individual that's looking to to move up in the career ladder, kind of the next level down in lactation care that it's not a nurse is something called a WIC peer counselor. They make about $13 to $15 an hour. So non-RN IBCLCs make about $25 to $32 an hour. RN IBCLCs make more, 35-ish, 32 to 35. So there is a real big bump in income with the IBCLC accreditation. The letters behind the name really do increase your wage potential.
Yeah. You mentioned too that the WIC offices are required to contract with a specialist. And do they contract with an organization like a hospital or something that offers that, or can they contract directly with a lactation specialist, and can that lactation specialist then bill, or do they have the ability to do that?
So WIC employs them.
Oh,
So,
WIC employs
yeah,
them.
don't
Oh, okay.
With hospital IBCLCs, they actually employ a large number of IBCLCs across the state. They just don't have enough.
Okay.
And so they're directly employed by WIC. And some are employed through, there's some, WIC does like contract some things out. So they will, they'll share. So when I mean contract, it's like several agencies will share an employed IBCLC. So in some cases, the state, they'll be on the state roster, but they'll work at several offices, or there'll be like one nonprofit, like Urban League, that runs several WIC offices, and they have one or two IBCLCs. In general, Michigan is a lactation desert as far as IBCLCs go. We have about 2.7 IBCLCs per 1,000 births. Ohio has near 5. The rest of the Midwest states, some of them have up to 7 per 1,000 births. New Hampshire and Vermont, 13 or 14 per 1,000. So I think the math was, if we trained 300 lactation consultants in our program this year, we would be at about the level of Ohio and the number of IBCLCs in the state as far as per birth.
Okay.
So in general, the LC job openings stay, they're hard to fill. So there's multiple job opportunities at any given time. Half of my students from the graduating class of last year are already employed, and they haven't taken the certification exam yet.
Yeah, well, I don't see any questions in the chat or any hand raised yet. I think, I will be honest, I've been in healthcare in some shape or form for almost 40 years, and I'm learning about this. I didn't know until 2 years ago, I think, when I was still a workforce dean of health and human services, that this job even existed. I didn't, and so I think a lot of people are realizing that this is a job that exists, and now it doesn't have to be an RN. So I think that this group as well, it needs to join you to get the word out that this is an occupation. I don't even know if it's an occupation in Lightcast or not, our data resource, if that job title exists in Lightcast, but I'm going to go out and look for it. But I think getting the word out that this is an occupation, and I can see a lot of people being interested in it if they knew it existed. So, we got a hand up here. Kelly.
Thanks, Jan. You knew I would ask a question.
That's okay.
So, are you already in contact with anybody from Trinity Health, either in West Michigan or Southeast Michigan, regarding clinical placements?
We do not. We currently this year expanded to Corewell. Haven't talked to Trinity, although Trinity does employ non-RNs. One of my early Pathway 3 students works at a Trinity site. So we definitely could reach out again to that. So it's a good idea.
Okay, I'm with Trinity, so I can help advance that conversation and find who that right person would be that could connect with you about if there's potentially room for clinical placements, whether it be Southeast Michigan or West Michigan.
We would love that. Like, I would love the Pontiac site.
Okay.
Would be a great site because it's, it's far away from, it's a little bit farther north, and it's a baby-friendly institution. So it's a really like amazing site as far as having processes in place to support breastfeeding. It's a great place to train. That's just one of them in particular. Muskegon. Would be a great place because that they have they're really short on lactation consultants in that community.
And Kelly, we're partnering hopefully with at least one of our community colleges on the west side. So any west side partnership, even Corwell on the west side, Paula, would be very helpful for the partners so that we can make sure that we have sites for students all over.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
We do survey, like we have two models. We do have 2 employed clinical instructors in Southeast Michigan, so we can increase the numbers of student placement. But we also have many that are mentored by employed IBCLCs, and they do. The employed IBCLCs really appreciate that and really enjoy having the students. We get a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, so we're currently using a combination of clinical instruction, clinical coordination, and preceptors that are employees at the hospital. So we're kind of using a hybrid, depending on where we're at, version of that.
Yeah.
Is that innovation again?
Yeah.
So
do you have a
we're coming
website
to
or any materials or anything that we can pass along as well to our organizations?
Yeah.
I can certainly give you information in our program and that kind of stuff. We can get you some stuff.
And I have like a high level infographic.
Yeah.
It's like a 1-pager that I use for like funders. We do, I on the Ascension side, I do have some philanthropic support so that I don't have to assess a clinical fee, and that increases accessibility. It was really important for us to be accessible to all women in the community. The landmark program, the first program accredited in the United States, is embedded in the master's program of University of North Carolina. You not only have to get into the public health master's at UNC, you have to pay the tuition, and then you have to pay $10,000 to the UNC Foundation, cash. So not accessible.
no.
For most, and so they really don't have a diverse class. It's just like it's really hard to, they tend to graduate as people that already have graduate degrees, just like the lactation consultants that are there now, but out in the community now. And I think we just have to broaden our scope of what this can mean for the community. And remember that 84% of women in Michigan initiate breastfeeding, but only 30% reach their breastfeeding goals. So there's this kind of black hole of support needed that we can fill.
So we're coming to the end of our meeting. I think we have a lot more we could go on and on because I think there's a lot more for all of us to learn. But, you saw in today's meeting our 3 pillars, from our research presentation to this convening group. As well as this is not uncommon when programs present to this group that they're in need of clinical assignments. So again, that's another convening connection partnership to build upon. And then, of course, solutions. And you saw the LPN program spoken about, the pre-licensure RN, and now the lactation specialist program. I bring these programs to this group because they are accessible to across the state to all organizations, community colleges that want to participate in them, Michigan Works agencies that want to use them for their job seekers, to reskill a job seeker or skill a job seeker to get one of these jobs, and again can be accessible across the state through any participating community college. So, so it's all about solutions, and I will continue to spread the word about the need for clinical sites. I'm going to be talking to a large group in Southeast Michigan, and you know, you need clinical sites. The anesthesia tech needs clinical sites. So there's all kinds of opportunity for partnerships. So that's what this group is for, and we will. We want to keep informed with you as this program rolls out. So we probably will invite you back. If you could send not only to Kelly, but to me, any materials that you have as well, because we keep those as a resource and then I can share them out. So anything you send to Kelly from Trinity, if you put me on the email too, I will have them in a file so that I can share them as their questions. So I can't thank our speakers enough today. That great information, wonderful information. And if there aren't any other questions or comments, I notice people are dropping off because we're at noon now. We've been going for 2 hours. So I really appreciate everybody's participation today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.